This is the mind-blowing part. 155 Chinese yuan each, or 310 for both a set. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from Xia Lin Studio. Today with a scale figure review over here. Two of them, they belong to the same set, so might as well review both. And they are by none other than Panda, who made a splash last year where their very first figure release, they caught everyone's attention. 1x4 scale Konata Bunny version, a 1x4 Bunny figure for 12,000 yen, and everyone were left asking how is that even possible. Now back then when I reviewed that figure, I concluded that it was great value for money, but at the same time it is not quite up to par, up to the standards of more expensive scale figures by Japanese brands. But at the same time, at that low cost of 12,000 yen, one could hardly say no. These are their cheapest figures yet so far. This is Panda's 1x6 scale, Xia and Lin. So the purple one here, her name is Xia. And yep, the black bunny here, but the box is red. This is Lin. Original characters by Panda released like around 2 months ago, around February or March of 2025, I think. I even forgot to check the release date. But these were very new figures. The height of this pair of figures, while being 1x6 scale on paper, they are closer to 1x7. Head height, including the bunny ears and base, is 28 centimeters, but head height is around 24.5, 25 or so. So that is not quite 1x6, more like 1x7, around that range, but I'm not complaining because I love 1x7 scale myself. Now, as for the pricing, this is the mind-blowing part. 155 Chinese yuan each, or 310 for both a set. Yep, that is the Taobao price at least. I'm not sure what the Japanese price is. That is the price I paid for with the conversions on screen over here. This is price figure level pricing. But you're getting a quality that is somewhere between an expensive scale figure and a price figure. Firstly, the boxes over here. So these are what the boxes looks like. Yeah, simple, functional, not very flashy, but the cost is low, so why not? Now, the box is pretty tough on its own, and there are special instructions on the back of the box over here, where Panda is giving us a teaser. Yeah, where there are another 2 figures coming. We don't know how they look like yet. Complete a set of 4, and you can display them in 2 different ways, at least being shown over here. And this is like a diorama in a bar, which is pretty nice. A very nice gimmick to have for a low budget scale figure. Like even the Japanese brands don't give us this level of flexibility in displaying a scale figure. And then during my unboxing process, during my figure haul video a few weeks ago, I asked everyone this question, like, why is this figure rated 18 plus over here when these are not customable figures? And then one of you replied in the comments saying that there is a special feature if you read the product details, the product description. This pair of figures have a hidden feature where if you subject this pair of figures to heat, then their bunny suit will become more translucent, more transparent, and then you get to see their oppai in their full glory. I haven't tried it yet because I'm not sure if I like the idea of using a hairdryer to blow PVC figures for no reason, but I don't think I've seen such a gimmick before in scale figures in general. This has to be a first. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this has to be a first, and that is pretty interesting. Well, I have seen enough oppai in my 15 and 16 years of collecting figures, so I won't be deliberately subjecting my figures to high levels of heat. One more thing included in the box are a bunch of accessories, which is pretty predictable at this point. So Panda likes to include an extra faceplate for their figures, where you get this 3D eye effect, where depending on which angle you look at the figure from right, from left, the eyes appear to look back into your soul. Yeah. Like maintaining eye contact with you, right? But the interesting part is that this is like a cheaper version of the 3D eyes. I noted a difference. If I were to compare this 3D eye over here and compare it to the ones by Animaster, I reviewed a few Animaster figures last year with the same feature. With those Animaster figures which are a tad bit more expensive, it is very obvious that the eyes are moving when you look at the figure from different angles. But for this one over here, it is not that obvious. The eyes are barely moving at all when I look at it. The eyes are moving only ever so slightly. So it is like the clear plastic in front is not as high quality in a way. It is like buying diamonds. Some have a higher level of clarity than others, the more expensive ones. So in a sense, this is similar. It is a cheaper type of 3D eye, so the eye movement is not as obvious, which is pretty interesting. I never thought that there is such a thing as cheaper or more expensive 3D eyes, but now I know. As for these beer bottles, wine bottles over here, right? This is a nice bonus, but they cost next to nothing to manufacture. I have a bunch of these wine bottles over here in my studio for photography users as props. They are so light, they are so easy to knock over with a slight shake to your figure. So my personal recommendation, if you don't mind doing that, is to apply a layer of double-sided tape at the bottom and then you just stick it over here so that they don't fall off that easily. That is always an option. Now moving on to the sculpting of these figures over here. The moment of truth, how good are they? How bad are they? I mean, this is too cheap, right? The first thing I was looking for are features to see in a price figure, especially mold lines along the side of the figure. None of that to be found over here. And in fact, the surface finish is so smooth that this is already a few levels above the very best price figures or even pop-up rates. This is actually scale figure level quality. Well, you can't compare this to 20,000-25,000 yen scale figures, but this is almost on par with the cheapest scale figures coming out from Japan, like maybe a Union Creative 15,000 yen scale figure, for example, those original characters. Yeah, they are almost that level at this point. I want to say that I'm astonished, but at the same time, I'm not too surprised anymore because these Chinese brands, they keep resetting our expectations on how good figures can get at a lower price point. So the score I would give for the sculpting is around 8 out of 10 maximum. And that is factoring in the cost, the price of the figure, which is so cheap, but at the same time, the figure isn't the most detailed thing ever. So 8 out of 10 is very high in fact. Especially when I factor in the sculpting on the hair, when you look at the head of this figure from behind, from the side, you look at the seam lines, between the front and rear hairpiece, there's a gap in between. No gaps over there, like they look very natural. Some expensive scale figures from Japan can't even get this part right. But here, it is perfectly executed. No ugly defects of any kind on the hair region, on the back of the hair. That's something I always look for, none of that over here. And as for the face, well, these are original characters by Panda, I think. So I guess that, the licensing cost is almost non-existent. And if I would compare their faces to the official product pictures, then they look pretty much alike, no problems at all. Moving on to the paintwork. Once again, is this price figure level or closer to scale figures? I would say in between, right? So this is definitely better than price figures for one very obvious reason that all of you can see, is that the very heavy shading paintwork on the hair over here, you don't see this in price figures, not even in pop-up rates. And the most obvious has to be the bunny ears over here, right? How they gradient, how the purple and the black over here fade out into a different color. And for the black version over here, it slowly transitions smoothly into brown color, not the kind of paintwork you'll see in price figures in general. For that reason alone, this is already a notch or two above price figures. And then you touch the surface of the skin, matte finish, not shiny, glossy, cheap plastic feel. Meanwhile, the bunny suit is actually glossy, so multiple different texture, right? The paintwork I would give for these figures are maybe 7 or 7.5 out of 10 maximum. That is partly because, these are not detailed figures to begin with, no intricate tiny details to hand paint, so there's no reason to screw up the paintwork. No scratches, no paint transfer, no bleeding, no QC related problems with the paintwork on these two figures, very consistent overall. And you do get fabric stocking on both figures, real fabric, though unfortunately the stitching lines are pretty obvious and not very nice to look at. Very obvious on the black color version over here, yep, on the inner side of the leg. On the white color one, because it is white color, it is less obvious, and the post is also helping it a bit to conceal the stitching lines over there. And if you were to tell me this is normal because it is fabric, right, you need to stitch it, I would say that check out Alta's 1/7 scale Skahak Bunny version from FGO. That figure had real fabric stockings, yet there are no stitching lines at all. I'm not sure how they do it. So there is actually a difference between cheap fabric and expensive fabric for figures, I guess. Now moving on to the base, which is probably the biggest feature and also weakness of this pair of figures. The good news is that, as depicted by the box earlier, there are a few ways you can assemble the figure, so you get kind of like a mini scene, a mini diorama of a bar, right? With all the wine bottles and so on, with 4 bunny girls where you can place them anywhere you want. That is the major benefit, the major advantage of this base design over here. It feels a little bit like Lego. You can plug your figure into literally any hole in this base over here, and you can also plug 2 figures into one single base and have them stand next to each other in close contact, which was what I did to take the photo of today's thumbnail for this video. Yeah, their chests appear to be squeezing against each other. You can also do it that way. Meanwhile, the stability of the figure has to be the worst part of this pair of figures, because there is only one single metal foot peg for you to plug into the base. That is how you can reposition the figure wherever you want. But that also means the figure has really weak support, and depending on how you plug it, for example, you can see how shaky this figure is, this purple one over here. And this level of shakiness is not good. The foot peg could break anytime if you wobble or shake the figure too much, as you can see. The same thing with this figure, because these are very heavy PVC figures, and look at this. This is not good at all. This is something that can break over time. Even if the metal rod does not break, the plastic surrounding it, the clear plastic, could start showing cracks over time. So my suggestion is to make sure your figure is leaning against this bar top over here from any direction. Like, you have extra support for the weight of the figure. You don't put all of the weight into one single foot over there. So the support and stability is like a 3 out of 10 maximum. It is pretty bad. But at the same time, I don't want to criticize the figures too much, because these are price figure level in pricing. So with my verdict on this pair of figures, should you get them? As long you love bunny girls, it is a big yes. If you have been buying Furio Buy Cute, bunnies, those are around $20 as well. Or you have been buying Taito Desktop Cute Bunny Girls, then you may want to add these figures to your collection. They don't cost that much more, but the quality is a notch or 2 higher. These are easy recommendations despite their flaws, mainly has to do with the base. So that is all for today's figure review. I hope that you found it useful and informative, and if it is, please give this video a like, subscribe to this channel for more content like this every week. Until then, I'll see you guys again very soon. Goodbye.